these are arguments that, in effect, is not saying just it's okay if one or two don't vote. You're not arguing that. You're arguing you shouldn't vote. You, generally. So, you know, I think that's, well, it's certainly a radical position.
And with that being said, I think it is better to have more rights than not any at all. Or, like with this case, even if your vote doesn't matter, even if you do it just for a comfort thing, like you personally feel like you made a difference. If no one votes, they might revoke that right, which would like make a lot of people unhappy, I guess.
Yeah, if nobody voted, we'd still need representatives, still need pass laws and things like that, and get judges and stuff. So find some way to do it. So if everyone acted like that and no one voted, they might be forced into just appointing people or having a drawing for it.
Dictator.
Yeah, I suppose somebody could just move into the White House and say, you know, I'm here, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, I know. Who know, you know, I'm not taking very seriously a scenario where nobody votes, right? I'm thinking, you know, millions of people are going to vote. Should you? How will you decide this, right? I'm giving you some recommendations here, and that we'd be better off with a different system. But I don't know how valuable, if you can see that the vote doesn't make a difference, how valuable is it as a right? Again, yeah, I mean, collectively we have the power.
So if we were to change the voting system, how long do you think the process that would take? Like,
Change it?
yeah.
Long. I mean, you have to amend the Constitution and everything, and you have to have a lot of voting for that. Yeah.
So like, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years?
Probably long. Well, I mean, if everyone agreed that this was the best thing to do, it probably wouldn't take that long, right?
Well, if nobody voted, you couldn't amend the Constitution.
It's true. There is a sort of a self-defeating thing to this, right? Everyone agrees that voting is pointless, so let's have a new system, and then a referendum comes up and everybody stays home. Right?
What if it was
shot
just
ourselves in the foot?
Oh,
It's
man,
a
we have to vote though.
nice. Okay, Evan.
You argued con. I don't think that deciding not to vote, I don't think that's a universal idea.
Yeah.
So,
You know, the version of the categorical imperative that I was thinking of here was the universal law one, but it's supposed to be equivalent to you shouldn't treat people as a means only and not as an end, right? And it seems like not voting doesn't involve treating someone as a means to an end. You're not manipulating, you're not depriving somebody of information, you're not coercing somebody, you're not valuing somebody else's autonomy or their desires or something like that. So if you go with the formula of humanity as the, principal formulation of the categorical imperative, it's hard for me to see how not voting is a violation of that. It's hard to know how to apply categorical imperative in most cases, I think.
if you vote for a candidate, do you think you're somewhat implicated in the decisions they make? So, say they make a very aggressive military move, are you somewhat responsible?
People do have those stickers, don't blame me, I voted for the other guy, right? So they're conscious that they might have some blame. Yeah, I guess not. I don't know.
Yeah, your vote didn't put them in office.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's a good question, right? If you voted for somebody, you supported them, and they did some bad things, or just were a bad president, should you feel culpability, or should you reproach yourself for your role in this bad outcome? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. Sarah?
What if rather than randomly selecting people, so you're just picking random Joes off the street? No, I don't need to be on the camera. That's why I have the camera. What if rather than that, you have like, say anybody can run to be mayor. And then, after 2 years, you take the people who were most successful, so economically or whatever, and those are the ones that are allowed to run or be randomly selected for, say, governor's position.
Oh, you move up, right?
Yeah, it's like a bracket. And then you go from, governor, you can either go to, Senate, Congress, or then be in the running for president. But you need to have that prior experience in politics and show that you're not going to run a little, a smaller place, like a little town, into the ground.
But who decides if
Yeah.
you're good enough?
Yeah.
You'd have to have some sort of a, like either economically, like checking like who's done best budget-wise, who's done best,
That's so subjective,
quality of life.
Right? And sometimes it might be in spite of a mayor that a town does well. Right?
Mhm.
I think I'd like maybe make a friendly amendment to this that I might like. I might like that there's an initial lottery for the lowest level sort of positions. City level councils and things.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the people who have spent a year on those committees, you select state representatives, right? And from those people, you have a lottery of people that are going to graduate to U.S. Congress or governor or something like that. And so your first position would never be president or senator. It would be that you, first of all, had to get lucky a bunch of times, be selected a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot of people would be able to be on city committees, and a much smaller group would be, higher up, right? But it would ensure that you're not a complete political novice, and it give you some idea about what's, your future might hold. But I think it's very difficult to establish. You'd have to do it with some kind of mechanical way. In other words, it doesn't involve subjectivity, because if you get that, then people are going to just argue for why they like this person and don't. You'd have to make it something that's, rotely applicable about employment levels or crime levels or whatever.
Yeah, have some specific criteria saying that, you've done this well in these areas.
But, if you were doing that in North Carolina for McCrory, right, how would you begin to do something like that? There's so many different, right, which things you measure? Like, do you focus on how many public school teachers flee the state, right?
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be what McCrory wants, right? McCrory might focus on something else, and you could see how the parties or the people on other, conservatives and liberals would want to pick different yardsticks. And so I'm worried you just get back, you'd be stuck with the same old partisan.
Or if not picking them for, because they've been the best, just pick the ones to be in their lottery who didn't run the town into the ground. So if they did something horribly corrupt and got caught, or if they did something which just killed the economy of a town, that would exclude them from the lottery.
Yeah.
If they were reasonably popular, that seems like it would be a not terrible way to go.
My thing is though, so say it takes,
The popularity is sort of a surrogate for the election, then, right? Which is, in a way, you pay much more attention to these popularity polls, right? You might take care to vote for president, but hang up the phone if they ask you for your opinion of the president's effectiveness, right? But if that became important to them holding a position or moving up or something, that might just become the new election. I'm sort of worried about. But yeah, you do want, you think some measure of success.
People to vouch for you is what you want.
Yeah.
People who are willing to stand up and say, this is a decent person.
Right.
For these reasons.
Right.
Not just, look at his nice smile.
Alex?
my thing with that is that, let's say it takes 10 steps, or maybe more to get the president, right? If you start at mayor or something, you'd have to keep saying yes, right? So do you want that person, or do you want, that goes back to if someone says yes, do you really want that person? And they would have to say yes 10 times to get there. So it's a power struggle again.
As long as they say, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then,
Yes.
and then my other point about my whole life going down the drain, I'm really morally obligated, forever.
But I mean, your life went down the drain because you're a United States senator or something.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't want that.
Worse ways.
As opposed to an academic.
Right. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Do something productive.
Maybe I'm a bias.
Yeah, Justice.
I'm trying my best to figure out how to go against without hearing, which I talked about before. But what about looking at voting as essentially not only democracy, but the survivability of humanity as a whole? Because the nature of voting not only structures democracy, but the processes of even in cultures that are ran by one individual or a family of individuals, they have been chosen through some method that that culture has designed as needed. So maybe not attacking the fact that voting is necessary for per se democracy, but voting is necessary for the concepts and, like I said, survivability of human interaction. Because if we had one pineapple and two people in the world, there would still have to be either murdering for someone for the pineapple or a decision as to why that pineapple should be used and take the seeds. I don't know how pineapples grow, but take the seeds, plant them, whatever. Voting of some sort without the availability to exchange an idea and vote for a final decision that takes more than one person.
You would have a body of legislators on this, right? So, did you admit that a dictator or a ruling family that would count as one of the ways to ensure that?
Because even in societies and cultures that have a ruling dictator or emperor society, there is some form of delegation as to how they got there. It's not innate that they were just born and then started ruling. Even like you can say hypothetically, if humans just appeared and then there was one person that was like, I'm the leader now, everyone would still have to say okay, or they would murder, or someone would have to say okay. A voting process would have to be done, not only like you said, not everyone has to do it to make it important, but not having voting as a whole is important. Like, I'm trying my best to figure out how to word it, but the nature of voting not only has to be individual, but the concept of voting itself has to be as a whole. Because like y'all were talking about earlier, if it takes 10 to 15 years to change how we vote or to change how our society is structured, there would still be processes of voting. And we got here through processes of voting or discrepancies or arguments or debates between each other, and someone had to make a final decision. A group of people, something, not one person made a final decision and it became the existence. That would be almost like God in a way. So maybe attack the fact that voting is necessary for any structure of survivability. So therefore it may not be necessary for you to vote, but it is necessary for voting to exist. And it may not be necessary for voting to exist in democracy, but it is necessary for voting to exist in a civilization that has more than one person. And so though it may not contribute to per se democracy, it contributes, like I said earlier, to our survivability. So to attack in that way, I guess.
So I'm recommending a system where voting is curtailed, where there isn't a public vote for Senate or governor or something, but once the representatives are selected, whether to the city council or to the state senate or U.S. Senate or the Supreme Court or something, that there is voting there by these smaller bodies. And I suppose I could say by my reasoning, the Senate is, House of Representatives is a large enough body that we should, from the House, select 6 people, to decide or something. And what I recommend, of course, does require the application of voting to bring it about, right? Unless we just, a dictator comes in and machine guns everybody, in the government and says, this is the new process. I'm going to tell you what to do until you have a lottery and pick people and then let it go. Right? That's a problem, I guess. Yeah.
And another thing I was thinking about is, I'm not saying I necessarily believe in the two-party system, but I think it is important that people have a political ideology, and particularly a group of people that they can discuss their ideologies with. And if you have a lottery, really, people would have no reason to formulate ideology, because the only time they need it is if they get elected, or chosen in the lottery.
I suppose, but why do you need it now?
other like regimes like the Communist Party, like Hitler and all that, don't arise. I mean,
But do you get to prevent them from doing it?
well, no, but if we all like, if we have like parties, like I don't know, if everyone didn't have an ideology, like other people with like similar ideologies to talk to about it, we might get like really radicalist.
Maybe. But think about how juries work, right? It's not like when you get onto a jury, you're immediately sorted into one of two caucuses on the jury, right? You've got a caucus with the group that's on one side and the group that's on the other. And imagine that one of the group will never vote innocent for anybody, right? Nobody will ever vote guilty. They're always against each other, or every issue that comes before them they see as a fight between the two halves of the jury, right? It's who's right about something. Not how juries really work, right? For the most part. You might occasionally have weird cases like that. But people come in and they don't represent a faction or a theory or a philosophy, and they just talk it out with other people about what the evidence is and whether someone's guilty, and it doesn't work too badly. So maybe it would be better if there were fewer rigid ideologies and more people just coming in and discussing something without a lot of preconceptions and trying to figure out what's the best way to go.
I thought with the lottery that there really wouldn't be any, or you wouldn't need any ideologies at all, because you could just be anyone. You could like not even know like anything about like being a conservative or like.
There
You mean like most people now?
Oh, I mean, I
It'll just
know,
be
but-
like, I think, go more issue to issue, I think,
Yeah.
right? Than kind of thrown in categories. So even if, I'm not a super political person at all, but like, I think gay marriage should be legal, and I think, pot's really legal, and like, I don't know. I get what you're saying for sure.
But like you just wouldn't have like a central place to go to. Like who would you like? People who actually like politicians, like now, people who care about like the country, like economics and things like that. Like who would you go to talk to like express your views, like, and find ways to improve like your views on that?
School? I mean, you could take economics classes.
I mean,
You could talk.
And you can discuss different theories, right? So there's, if you take economics, there'll be different theories, right? Is lowering taxes on the rich raise all boats, right? So there are, groups of economists who think that it does and groups that don't, and the evidence might support one of these over the other. And so it seems like you could form your opinion about this issue, by studying economics, right? And you could form your view about abortion, whether the fetus is a human and whether it's ever okay to kill humans, like by taking a philosophy class.
yeah, but if you're selected from the lottery and you didn't go to school and you didn't know that, and you don't have an ideology, how would people like look at you as a leader or a representative? How would they know how you're going to vote for them?
I think he's afraid we're going to lose our rich, robust, in-depth political discourse we have in this country now.
You joined CNN or Fox.
Yeah, I mean that's the media. I think a lot has to do with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know your whole point is not to vote, but also it's kind of radical, and I kind of like see the middle ground between. So I kind of think freedom of thought, and expressing your ideas, is like essential to what he said, the human nature.
Yeah.
So you could have a lottery with a representative sample of the United States, and you send those people to school for a whole entire year where they learn and they make their own like ideas and stuff like that. And then there's another lottery for only 10 people, and then you vote like democracy-wise. Everyone votes for those 10 people who express their views for another year. So instead of having like a 2.5 year, what's it called?
Apprenticeship?
No, not apprenticeship. Like they're candidates
Interns.
instead, interns. But they have a year. What's going on right now? Not elections, but
Electoral.
Campaigning?
campaign. So they have 1 year to campaign after learning for a year, and that's when you get to vote
So this is a measure to try to increase competence, right? Having required training as part of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's interesting. There's a lot of ways people have tried to do this. Have advocated either for weighting or, literacy tests have a real bad history because they've just been a fig leaf for racism, right? That the black guy wants to vote, and you give him, the Iliad and original ancient Greek and require him to translate it into English or not vote or something, right? But if it was carried out in a honest way, some people argue that some kind of proof of your being informed about the issues should either be a prerequisite to your being allowed to vote, or the people who can do this should have their votes weighted more heavily. That's another way to try to keep the vote and keep the people and keep democracy, but in some way bend the moral arc of elections towards knowledge and competence. Right? So required education and training is one way to do this. Weighting or putting requirements on voting is another one. It's hard to do, I think. We all like expert people, right? And if the election system worked right, we'd be picking the people who were most competent and really were experts, right? And some people say that is what we do, right? You look, most people elected to office are educated. Most people have, who are major, have a background in something important where they had a lot of responsibility. So whatever you think of Trump, he's, has a lot of experience in public life and has a lot of responsibility for people's well-being and knows a lot about a lot of things.
He'll tell you that in exactly those words.
Yeah. As does Hillary.
I was supposed to say as opposed to Hillary's humility.
So maybe maybe I oversell the lack of competence, you get as an outcome of the election process. I concentrate too much on that guy who denies global warming. I'm sure which guy this is. The guy from Oklahoma.
Getting paid from somebody.
Inhofe, right.
I used to live in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, what's your name?
Campbell.
What he was saying, Campbell was saying about the two-party system, you have your thing, we wouldn't need them because we wouldn't have to do fundraising. But I think two parties are really more along the lines of, ideally, and they haven't been that way maybe the last 20 years or so. But ideally, they're along the lines of, here are two ways of approaching issues that confront the nation. And there's competing, and part of the campaigning is really supposed to show the expertise that various candidates have on that. And